This episode of the Party Loaded podcast is proudly sponsored by Audible.com. Check out their awesome catalogue of audiobooks with over 180,000 titles to choose from. And be sure to grab a free audiobook on us and support the show by visiting audibletrial.com/endgame.
Let's party.
Everybody, and welcome back for another episode of Party Loaded. It is Party Loaded episode 179 for Friday, the 31st of May 2019. We are recording on a Friday this week, a little different for us. We're usually midweek because we've had some IRL stuff going on and just bump the schedule around a little bit, but that's cool. It's still going to be the same awesome helping of everything great in the world of video games for you all tonight. So, introducing the team with me, my name, of course, is Luke Retallick. I'm joined tonight by the returning Matt Diet. Welcome back, Game Dad. What's going on? Hello.
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
I'm actually a bit under the weather, but I'm feeling a distinct pep tonight that I wasn't expecting to feel until perhaps earlier today. I started seeing a whole bunch of leaked stuff coming through about E3, but more about that later. In the meantime, I also want to introduce back to the show after a couple of weeks' absence, Adrian Cheer. Welcome back, mate. What's going on?
Hello, gentlemen. How are we?
I'm good. Yeah. Way better than I perhaps should. I think maybe it's the delirium creeping in. I'm not entirely sure. That's been good. So, Adrian, you obviously had to miss an episode because you got kind of caught with some work stuff and this, that, and the other. How the last few weeks generally been? Been having fun without us? Or actually, I know you've been having fun with us at least, so that's good.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, no, that is true. Good. Just, being an adult sucks. So sometimes we have to do adult things and I don't like it, but we have to do it.
I feel you. I definitely feel you. Yeah. Well, let's spend the next sort of 60 to 90 minutes like throwing all that adult shit out the window and let's retreat into our nerdy selves and have some fun. So now,
that sounds good.
I know you've been playing a bunch of a particular game that we're going to kind of have to hold off talking about until next week for reasons of which will become clear next week.
Yes.
Anything else in the meantime? Anything, I know, been minor bits and pieces, so...
Yeah. So, I've mainly been preoccupied the last couple of weeks working on a Warhammer project. For those who are unaware, Luke and I used to both work for Games Workshop, so I'm very deep into miniature painting. There's a painting competition coming up tomorrow, so... He's
also pretty damn good at it, if I don't say so.
I'm okay. Yeah. But I've been working on a very, very ambitious project that's sort of pushing my skills to the limit, and it means I've been spending probably 3 to 4 hours a night working on it, because I tend to paint very, very slowly. So as a result, I haven't been playing much, except, and I kind of am in that place that Christian wanted me to be in a couple of podcasts ago, where I play Hearthstone now and then in between other games, and that's kind of what I've been doing. So just to kind of break up my painting schedule and work commitments and stuff, I've been jumping into Hearthstone and playing the new adventure that came out with the expansion, which is called the Dalaran Heist. And I must admit that not only have I started playing the Dalaran Heist, but I went back and played through Kobolds and Catacombs and all the other adventures that I hadn't played. And it didn't take long for them to get their hooks into me due to the kind of roguelike nature of the mechanics. And yeah, that sort of started a bit of an addiction to these adventure packages. Especially because a lot of them were quite hard. So
I was saying last week as well, there's a lot of them now, like heaps.
Yeah, the shitloads. And so I was kind of at the peak of my Hearthstone adventure gaming when Dalaran got released. I was like, yep, definitely getting that. So I bought that and I've been working through it. So I've really enjoyed it. I'm not really a CCG kind of guy. Like I did play a little bit of Magic back in the day, but I find, if I'm being honest, I feel like I'm not smart enough to play Hearthstone very well. So the Adventures is a nice kind of middle ground where I can play the game and I don't have the stress of competing against another person who most often than not is better at the game than I am.
Yeah.
So I can just kind of sit back and kind of play the game at my own pace and enjoy, the mechanics. I particularly like that the Adventures reward you as you play through like a series of games. You kind of earn special cards and special powers that eventually make you like an OP monster, which is kind of awesome. So, yeah, that's sort of been entertaining me for the last couple of weeks while I've been painting, and that's pretty much all I've been doing game-wise.
Nice. I was going to say Hearthstone Smarts, sort of specifically being a thing. Have you attempted much of the Dr. Boom's Puzzle Labs expansion content yet?
No, that's the one expansion I haven't done, and possibly because I know it's more of like a puzzle kind of thing.
It's done in a really clever way, though. Like, if you want to actually start to get better at that shit, I highly, highly recommend it. I think it's very good. Yeah.
Now, I remember Christian saying to me that it is designed in some way to kind of up your skills in competitively. So that does appeal to me. And I must admit, having Christian teach me, the occasional rules here and there and strategies has helped a lot. Like, I used to just play Hearthstone however I thought I had to play it. But it's it kind of feels to me almost like a MOBA in that you can't really be good at it until you understand every class and their cards. You can't just understand your own deck and your own class.
Yeah.
You need to understand every class if you really want to be competitive.
It's trend sensitive too. Like, people get popular with certain builds and things, and you need to know how to counter them and what's the hot thing at the moment. Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I don't have A, the patience, and B, I'm not saying that I'm an idiot, but I'm not very good at thinking that far ahead when it comes to tactical games. It's why I was always much more of a painter than a gamer when it came to Warhammer as well. I was never really that good at the game, to be honest. So that could be why I enjoy roguelites too, because they tend to be sort of short and sweet without too much planning ahead. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Kind of getting a little bit self-flagellative now, so let's maybe move on.
Just getting old. Just getting old like all of us, man. That's what it is.
Yeah, I'm starting to get depressed.
Yeah. Oh, man.
What's everyone else been doing?
Funny you should mention roguelikes. I want to talk about one of the big things I've been doing this last week. So, do you guys remember like a few weeks back when we spoke about, I'm pretty sure you were here, Adrian, where we spoke about the news around the Minecraft streamer that ended his 5-year run in a hardcore sort of world.
Yep.
So the guy's name is Philza, and I've since been watching a bit of his stuff on Twitch and become quite a fan, actually. Like, he's very entertaining. And as a result of that and a bunch of other things that I've been doing sort of Minecraft related lately, I myself have kicked off the whole hardcore Minecraft adventure, and it has been a shitload of fun. So much so that I've been finding myself spending quite a bit of brain power and thinking time on it during the week when I would normally be idly daydreaming about other things. So, and I've made a commitment with regards to this. Like, I've decided if I'm going to play Minecraft hardcore, I'm only going to do it on stream, because I think that it's a really good way to sort of commit to like a little bit of it each week without sort of burning out on it super quick. I think it sort of compels you to keep yourself honest by having an audience, or at least sort of having it recorded and put up on the internet for posterity. And I think that playing hardcore too, because it is designed as a solo game. Like, you can't really play a multiplayer hardcore because it is designed as a solo experience with the way that the game world deletes if you die. If you're gonna play hardcore and build a whole bunch of really cool stuff in there and get creative and actually make things look aesthetically excellent, I feel like you really still want to be able to share that with someone, and it seems like a perfect thing to do on stream or to create video content of later as well. So yeah, so I kicked it off last weekend and then followed up on Monday night with a stream as well. And I'm going to say this now, I've decided, like, from this point onwards, Minecraft Mondays on the Party Loaded Twitch channel are a thing. I'm planting the flag. That is now every Monday. it is a thing. So if you want to come and watch me on Twitch playing hardcore Minecraft, or I might actually try some different Minecraft stuff over time, but hardcore is kind of the focus for now. Every Monday at 7:30 Western Standard Time is going to be what's going on. So, but yeah, so far I have died twice, once each session. So I've had to restart twice, and when I hop on the next time, I'll have to restart again. But I've learned a lot, guys. Like, it's been a very interesting adventure so far. So the way that I play Minecraft, I thought was fairly conservative. I was wrong. Playing hardcore, you have to be so much more careful because, all of the mobs spawn really aggressively. They are tougher, they hit harder, and, you really need to think carefully about what you're doing when it comes to even some of the basics. Like, when you very first spawn in the world, like, worrying about basics like food a lot earlier than you normally would, and covering your butt when you go underground and there's dark spots and things could be creeping up on you. I never used to worry that much about that kind of thing because obviously early Minecraft often you didn't have much to lose. So if you get killed and respawn back at your spawn chunk, it's not a big deal. You just jump back in and do the same thing again. But when you have to worry about the entire world like imploding as a consequence, you kind of need to reassess your life in the game a little bit. So the first death came after an hour 40 when I had run around, found a bit of cool stuff, and then ventured underground to do some mining. And I was being really careful kind of lighting up all of the tunnels that I was exploring because obviously hostile mobs can sort of spawn in dark areas in Minecraft and you have to sort of light areas up to prevent that from happening. And I thought I'd covered myself, but there was a little tunnel sort of above me, just out of eyesight that I wasn't sort of careful enough to see. And as a result, when I was wandering through, a creeper spawned up there and then dropped on me and exploded on my head. And one hit killed me instantly. So I was just like, oh shit, I need to not let that happen again. So came in the second time on Monday night. I was being really, really cautious. And I had like the absolute dream start on Monday night, like with regards to the world spawn. So if for anyone who's unaware, like when you start a new world in Minecraft, you can just set it to like a random spawn. Or you can do what's called a manual world seed. So there's like a text box you can type into, and you can put like character or number sort of characters in there, and in any combination. And that actually is what the game uses to generate the world spawn. And in theory, if you were to have someone else go away and create a new world using the exact same combination of letters and numbers that you have in your seed, then they would get the same starting world, even though there's like literally billions and trillions of combinations. So I typed in something which I think was along the lines of Creeper 1, Luke 0 or something like that, and hit spawn to spawn the new world. And it was like the most perfect world I possibly could have gotten. I started off 5 blocks away from a jungle temple, managed to raid that and get some diamond immediately. I ventured out of the jungle and ran into, within eyesight of each other, 2 villages immediately. A pillager outpost, which is one of the new things that's come into the game as of the last update, which is another interesting structure, and you can kind of raid that for loot and stuff later. And a bunch of really useful bits and pieces. A desert temple as well, again, within the same distance of the villages. I was like just jumping for joy at how lucky I had been. And then I thought, well, this pillager outpost is a new game mechanic. I'm curious about this. I might go and explore it. What a fucking idiot thing to do. Why? Why did I decide that was a good idea? So this is a new hostile mob that's basically like an evil villager mob. And they are designed to sort of have like an evil sort of barbarian style outpost, and they raid nearby villages, and they're super aggressive, and they've got crossbows and all this sort of shit. And so I ran up and I was sort of checking them out, and I had a shield, and so I was blocking their crossbows and killing a few of them off and that sort of thing. And Imogen jumped into the stream chat, and she was sort of watching what was going on, and was chatting to her and having some fun. And then before I knew it, I looked at my shield and I realized that I was actually just about to lose it because it was about to lose its last bit of durability. And I had 4 of these fuckers in front of me shooting crossbows at me. And I immediately, like with a panic, realized this is only going to end one way if I don't get out of here right now. But I couldn't turn around and run because the second I did, I'd take 4 crossbow bolts in the back and I'd probably be dead on the spot. So I was in a desert at the time, very, very carefully backing up. And then I took a crossbow hit. I took another crossbow hit, pulled the shield back up just in time. I was on like 1 heart of health, kept on backing up. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be really embarrassing if I backed off a ledge or something dumb like that? And I ran into a cactus and died. So, terrible. Yeah. Lesson learned, I hope. It was, oh man, it was a Darwin Award, like live on stream. That's what it was. So yeah, but I'm still, despite that and despite losing, it's such a great world spawn, I'm super pumped to jump in again next Monday. So that will be happening, and we will see if I've learned any more since then. I'll be super more careful and hopefully not do anything dumb like that again. But the more the more I spend time watching other hardcore streamers this week, the more I've sort of gotten a sense of some things that I should do and not do. So I think next time will be a little different at least. So that'll be fun. But apart from that, I've been playing a bunch more Rage 2, which I continue to enjoy a great deal, and don't really have a whole bunch more to say on that. I think I'm starting to get my head around some of the superpowers and some more of the mobility focused ways that you can absolutely shred dudes in that game and do some pretty hilarious stuff. So Matt, have you played any more Rage 2? Have you been sort of directed onto other stuff this week? What's going on with you?
I played a little tiny bit of Rage 2, but most of my focus was absorbed by a different game this week. Well, two different games. One of them I can't talk about. But the other one was Observation, which just came out on Epic Game Store.
This is the one where you play as the space station, isn't it?
Yes, you play as the AI on the space station, and it's sort of like a horror thriller kind of setup. And oh my god. Okay, the game's fucking great.
I've heard super polarizing things about this game, like mostly really positive, but it seems that the people who don't like it really don't like it. So
yeah, so I can understand entirely why they won't like it. And basically, to put it in a nutshell, if you don't like your game slow, you will hate it because it is purposefully slow. Like it is. So basically, as the artificial intelligence on this space station, you don't, you expect AI to be kind of fast. But you're not that fast. You are limited by your brain power, so the AI is only as smart as you are. But also to kind of like move around the ship and everything, you're using the internal cameras, and they move really slowly.
Is this like a Five Nights at Freddy's kind of camera situation, or
yes,
right?
It's
okay,
very very similar. So you're zipping into a camera in a room, and you have like two or three cameras in a room, and you can swap between them. But then when they pan around, it's very, very slow. Later on, you do get control of like this little floaty orb thing. You can kind of zip around the ship, but it's only during certain parts. And it's quite frankly actually really difficult to control. I actually busted out my Xbox One controller when I was in those parts of the game. But otherwise, yeah, it is really cool. Like if you like sci-fi, it is really, really interesting. Basically... So this is like in the first 5 minutes, so it's not spoilers. But something's going on with the ship, and there's one crew member that you know is alive, called Emma, and she's basically the person that you're helping out. And you were in orbit around Earth, and now you're in orbit around Saturn, and you have no idea why or how.
Right.
And it's basically working out what happened, where did the rest of the crew go, and getting the ship back up and running because all of your systems as the artificial intelligence had been impacted by whatever had happened. I won't say any more than that, because it is a horror-ish thriller. It's more thriller than horror. But yeah, it is really, really cool. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's like 2 hours long. It's made by No Code, who also worked on Stories Untold.
Oh, yeah.
Which is actually free on the Epic Game Store right now, and that game is also incredibly good, and it just super surprising in just really, really awesome ways. Like, yeah, I won't say much more about Stories Untold, but yeah, like Observation was freaking fantastic, and I can 100% recommend it. Like, the price tag is well worth it. Yeah, go out and get it.
Well, the fact that it's only a couple of hours makes it a lot more likely that I'll be able to squeeze that in, so that's good to know.
It was like 2 or 3 hours. It's like film length, in terms of like video game. Yeah. Okay. So I got through it very, very quickly. I basically one sitting, I got through it start to finish because I was hooked. So.
Right. Is it a multiple ending sort of situation or
No. Single ending. As far as I can tell, it's a single ending. There is a whole bunch of different stuff to kind of collect in the game world, like logs and that sort of thing, belonging to other characters that does elaborate further on the story and what's kind of going on the space station and what might have happened.
Yep.
But from what I gathered, there doesn't seem to be any alternate ending for getting all of those. So.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah. Some weird, scary shit. I'm all about that. So, speaking of some weird, scary shit, let's dive into some news.
Now it's time to hear some gaming news. Time for some gaming news.
All right, so we surprisingly got a big chunk of news during the week for Death Stranding. So it seems like Hideo Kojima decided that Sony not being at E3 this year was going to be no barrier to him doing his own thing and releasing a whole bunch of cool shit for the game he's working on anyway. So. Yeah. I got to say, I'm actually kind of surprised that he was able to get away with doing that instead of sort of coming under the banner of the new PlayStation video presentation format. The what have they been calling it lately? The State of Plays. So because they just launched the State of Play sort of format as like almost like the Nintendo Direct style sort of news updates, and that seems to be exactly where this kind of stuff now belongs as far as Sony sort of first party exclusives go. But not in this case, apparently. He's a world unto himself, as he has been for a long time. So yeah, but
I love what he tweeted out was like, Death Stranding is not a stealth game. It is a brand new action game with the concept of connection, and in brackets he's put strand. I call it social strand system or simply strand game. I'm like, what?
the whole not a stealth game thing, I don't think had Christian completely convinced that he was being truthful about that, but
the more I see of it, the less I understand, but the more convinced I am that it's basically sci-fi pizza delivery simulator, so...
So
now you've got my attention.
Adrian, you haven't sort of watched the trailer. I urge you to do it at some point after we finish tonight. But yeah, Matt, what did you make of that? It was 9 minutes. It was a long trailer. Like there was a lot of stuff in there. It gave away a lot and also did not. So
yeah. So let me preface this by basically saying I've never played a Hideo Kojima game otherwise.
Oh, okay. So, you've never played Metal Gear or anything like that?
I've never played a single Metal Gear game.
Right.
But I love his style. I love the kind of wacky, zany feel to things. And I love how mysterious Death Stranding kind of is, right? Because, like, it is really awesome in this day and age to be getting new trailers and to basically understand less about the game. Like, you have these expectations set up, and then the trailers come out and it kind of throws your expectations in your face. Like, nope, that's not it.
Yeah.
Because the trailer shows off a bunch of bizarre stuff. Like, they spend like 5 seconds showing this ladder that can extend out so we can climb up onto this cliff edge. And it's just like a sci-fi ladder. And I'm like, why is a trailer focusing on this? This is really strange. But then there's all these other really interesting kind of sci-fi concepts in there. So I kind of get the impression that there's this whole either alternate reality or the upside down kind of thing going on with another reality kind of phasing into our own. And that's where all those kind of dark goo enemies come from.
Yeah.
But the game's very clearly kind of less focused on that. And it seems almost like post-apocalyptic because they're constantly talking about rebuilding America and giving people hope and all this stuff. Yeah, it's really, really bizarre. But it very much sounds like they're setting it up to become a series. Like, there will be other games and such, and this is kind of setting up all of that story. So I fully expect that there will, whatever ending there will basically leave a lot of stuff in the air.
Yeah.
I fully expect as well that when you start playing, it will just be like, this is the state the world's in, but we're not going to explain why.
Yeah. Here's the weird thing, though. Like, from what I understand, this is an online multiplayer game. So I have no idea how that's going to work, and I don't think it's going to work in any of the traditional sense. But unless I'm completely off base about that, but I'm sure that some of the mention early on was that there's going to be interaction between other players online. Whether it's they sort of play together in the same sort of game instance in the traditional sense or not, or whether there's some sort of other way that players link up with each other, like more of a journey-esque kind of interaction or not, I don't know. But I mean, this whole connecting sort of things vibe that he's got going on definitely seems to lend itself to that in a weird
social strand system.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And with the whole upside down alternate reality thing, being connected to other players that are alternate versions of yourself on the other side actually sounds kind of neat.
Yeah, like that whole upside down reality thing, plus all of the modern military sort of influences that are in this game with the post-apocalyptic stuff. A lot of that very much does seem to me as like a merging of a lot of his history with Silent Hill and Metal Gear.
Yeah,
like those concepts sort of coming together. But it's something else on top of that entirely. It's that plus something very new at the same time. But I love the fact that for a 9-minute trailer that actually showed off a decent amount of gameplay footage, it wasn't like a movie trailer that overstays its welcome and gives you too much of the story. Like, it really left me sort of just wondering more at the end of this, as opposed to feeling like I'd had a lot of questions answered at all. So I think it's a good thing. Like, it actually entices you to want to play, as opposed to think that you know what it is now. So yeah.
Yeah, I do kind of get the impression that the bad guy has died and kind of connected with these other characters on the other side. Like, it's the death dimension or something.
Well, Hades was mentioned a couple of times. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's why we're seeing a lot of soldiers and such. Like there was scenes that was like it was pulled straight from World War One or World War Two. And like there's a lot of weird shit going on this. It is super sci-fi. It feels like a whole bunch of worlds have just kind of collided together and now humanity's kind of left to deal with it essentially.
Yeah.
I'm tempted not to watch the trailer at all because it sounds so off the wall that I'm kind of keen just to experience it straight out of the box and just not know anything about it.
You've seen some of the other ones in the past though, haven't you? Because there's been a bunch of trailers before now.
I've seen maybe one bit of footage and that's it. Like I have no idea what the game is about. I am total, not deliberate, but media blackout on this game. I don't even really understand. Like I know who Hideo Kojima is, and I know that he's kind of fucking crazy, but I don't have any. Because I haven't played the Metal Gear games, so I don't have a great deal of connection to him either.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of curious to see what it is, and I'm interested to, like, just experience it as a pure experience without knowing anything about it.
I actually wouldn't say this often, but in this case, I kind of feel like part of the pure experience is actually going along for the ride at this stage as well. Because I think that a lot of this marketing and media for the game in the lead up is actually like designed to. Like it's almost like the game has started now. Like you're experiencing parts of it from this point onwards, and actually getting your hands on the controls and playing the thing for real is not going to be impacted by what you see now. If anything, it's going to kind of like improve your enjoyment of the experience because it just sort of, I guess, stretches it out in a weird but fun way. If you know what I mean. Like
I kind of like the sort of meta nature of it. Like I think that is interesting.
Yeah, totally.
I was only like semi-interested in Metal Gear games, but I'm super interested in Death Stranding, and like I totally can see where you're coming from, Adrian, but quite honestly, like even watching the trailers, I still think you're essentially going in blind. He's doing a very good job of making sure that you're getting very little in the way of plot points.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I guess we should also mention the critical piece of the trailer reveal was that we actually have a release date, and it's this year. So Death Stranding's coming out on the 8th of November. Which puts that smack bang at the tail end of peak season this year, which was super surprising. So, yeah, now we do have a first-party PlayStation exclusive confirmed for the big part of the year, and it's not Last of Us 2. So, that's a pretty strong end of console cycle move for PlayStation. Who knows what else is coming that we haven't even seen from the next couple of weeks coming up yet? So, yeah. But we also had some fun Nintendo stuff during the week, which I know you caught a bit of, Adrian. So
so I mean, I'm a pretty big Pokemon Go fan. I've played it abroad and I've played it across Australia. But you know, one place where I've never played it, Luke, in my dreams, because as it turns out, the Pokemon Company is not just satisfied with invading your life while you're awake. They also want to do it while you're asleep. So there was a Nintendo Direct where they had a couple of cool announcements. And the one at the top of this news segment is Pokemon Sleep, which is, from my understanding, is a way for you to play Pokemon Go. It is Pokemon Go, right? Yeah.
No, I think it's actually a separate thing. Like,
it's a separate game, is it?
You're right. It may be both.
That's
like they talked about some sleep interaction stuff with Pokemon Go, but the crux of the announcement was around a totally different game called Pokemon Sleep. So I think it's both.
Okay. So this is where I got confused. Pokemon Sleep, you play it while sleeping, so debatable whether it's actually a game. It monitors your sleeping patterns in the same way that Fitbits kind of do. And then when you wake up in the morning, it uses the data from your sleeping habits to populate the game. There aren't really many details on what that actually means. It just means that the tagline for the game is transforming sleep into entertainment, which is interesting because when I sleep, I just kind of want to sleep. But it is coming with a peripheral, which is called the Pokemon Go Plus. And this is the device that
name for a peripheral ever.
I know, it's so shit. Pokemon. They should just call the Pokemon Go Sleep. Go to sleep.
The Pokemon Go the fuck to sleep.
I think they should have just called it Pokemon Stop.
Pokemon Sleep. Yeah, Pokemon shut up. But this device, similar to like a Fitbit, will monitor your sleep patterns, and then who knows what it'll be. I don't know. I find the first thing I thought when I heard this was like, is this like an SNL skit about like the epidemic of Pokemon Go and how people are so addicted to it that they'll buy anything and they'll play it in their sleep.
Now, it's funny that you mentioned that. There is actually a very popular Australian Nintendo-focused website. Vooks. Or Vooks. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. So Vooks is a very popular sort of Nintendo news site in Australia. And they actually did like an April Fool's gag a few years ago where they actually had almost exactly this product, like Pokemon. They had a different name, but it was essentially the same kind of concept. But it certainly did feel like an out-of-season April Fool's joke, to use the meme. So,
like I said, I'm really looking forward to just grinding out this game by never leaving bed ever again.
Yeah.
I love some of the information in the article where it says like, the app will monitor user sleep patterns and reward them for time spent sleeping. The concept of this game is for players to look forward to waking up every morning.
Yes, because without this...
I know, because at the moment, I hate waking up every morning. Every morning when I wake up, I'm like, oh, fuck, again? Again with this shit? But now, thanks to Pokemon Sleep, I don't have to kill myself. Yay!
I'm just looking forward to the inevitable sequel where we finally get to take the layers off and decide once and for all the answer to the age-old question, do Pokemon fuck? Pokemon sex?
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking for the best one, which will just be Pokemon Eternal Sleep, where you just die and then it uses the data from your death to populate the game.
Yeah.
And then your family and friends can play it at the wake.
And you have two of the peripheral devices, but you just place them on your eye sockets like ferryman coins. So.
Yes, exactly. Perfect.
Quite honestly, the possibility of us getting Pokemon guns seems more and more likely by the
I know, right? Yeah. Jesus, yeah. So the other bit of news that came packaged with this was just a little one, was a new Detective Pikachu game. So this is headed to the Switch. No one's quite sure yet whether it will be a sequel to the 3DS Detective Pikachu or whether it will be a brand new title, or if it has anything to do with the plot. All we know is that it's coming and it's going to be on the Switch. So that'll be good or bad depending on whether you like Detective Pikachu or not.
Yeah, they were super vague about that, actually. It sounded like it could even be a port with additional content. So
yeah, who knows? Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. But yeah, so unfortunately that Nintendo Direct didn't have any reveals for Sword and Shield, which I think a lot of us were hoping for. But I'm sure there'll be plenty news of that to come in the future.
Yeah, they've actually announced, in fact, a second Direct for exactly that on the 5th of June. So that's coming up next week.
Oh, there you go.
So
cool.
It's almost like they got out ahead of that Pokemon sort of business conference and said, yeah, don't worry, guys. Like, the real Direct is coming after this one. You don't have to worry.
We got you. We know what you actually want.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah,
it's interesting. But another reveal that actually just happened yesterday, I believe, we got a trailer for the new Call of Duty, which, as a lot of people sort of suspected, and rumors were pretty heavily going around the last few weeks, is Modern Warfare. But they're actually doing the reboot thing. So it's not Modern Warfare number, it is Call of Duty Modern Warfare. They've taken it back to the original name to, do a reboot, essentially. It's like the God of War thing. They've totally decided to take it back to its roots. But it's interesting. The whole thing they're focusing on with this one is like the realism and the morally grey world, where like a lot of the footage they've shown, particularly with some of the airstrike stuff and the players, characters in the game that really aren't like a specialized SAS style sort of outfit. Like a lot of them are very nondescript and it seems like they're trying to insert a lot of narrative in there around, modern day warfare morale and some of the dilemmas, the ethical dilemmas they have to face when they're out, in combat, taking pretty, unilateral action and that kind of thing. But yeah, so far it looks pretty good. Like graphics are a pretty big step up from what you've seen from these games in the past, even this year with Call of Duty Black Ops 4. And it's one of those things. If you're into the COD stuff, you're probably going to love the shit out of this. So. But it seems to be a much heavier narrative focus than what they've done this year with the pure sort of battle royale online play thing with Black Ops. So yeah, again, we'll see.
I was going to say, like, if they're going and the fact that they're going and actually making it Modern Warfare and that they're using that name, they are going to want that to be a damn good game, because that is not going to go over well if it ends out just being another Call of Duty game that everybody forgets about in 12 months time, because Modern Warfare, like the first Modern Warfare, was so good. Like, I don't like Call of Duty games, but that was such a brilliant game. So I'm nervous about that part, but we'll see.
People seem to have a lot of love for that series in particular, so I would expect off the basis of that alone, it will probably do pretty well. So,
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, speaking of things that people love, especially me, so Bungie has a...
As in everyone loves you especially? Or?
Oh, everybody does love me. Yes, that's also true. But no, I was talking about Destiny 2. And most people should love Destiny 2 because it's a really, really, really good game. But they announced the stuff that's coming in the next season, the Season of Opulence. So there is a new 6-man PvE thing that they're adding called the Menagerie, which is apparently kind of a randomized area where you can run through and you kill stuff. There's a whole bunch of really neat sounding mechanics they're doing in there. So over the last season, the Season of the Drifter, they slowly introduced new Gambit maps for Gambit Prime. They're doing something similar here for the Menagerie, where they're actually adding in new bosses over time. So every time you go in there, there might be a new boss that week that you've never actually fought against before.
Oh.
But there's also some really other, like the coolest part that I'm super excited about. So Crown of Sorrow being a raid and everything, I can't wait to hear about that. I probably won't be able to get to play it in the first 24 hours or so, but I love when a new raid comes out. But the really neat thing about Menagerie is the way that the reward system is working. So rather than the whole random rewards thing, you have this item called the Chalice that you get given. So the whole thing with the Menagerie is it actually is taking place on the Leviathan, where the Cabal kind of turned up with this massive ship that started eating a planet. You are basically in there and you're doing work for Callus, who was the Cabal Emperor. And he's given you this Chalice now that you can go and socket with these runes. And by socketing it with certain runes, you can basically say, I want this weapon with this specific role and these perks. So you can get exactly the gear that you want. And basically there's some mystery in there about figuring it out. And they've basically come out front and said that Season of Opulence is all about mysteries. So it's all about kind of figuring things out and kind of unwinding how things work. And there's treasure hunts, and it sounds really, really neat. But the part that I'm super excited about, so Season of Opulence is cool and all, but then literally not long after they showed off the schedule for Season of Opulence and all the stuff that's coming in it, Bungie went and dropped that on June 6th, so 48 hours after the new raid has come out, they're going to be revealing the next chapter of Destiny 2 in a stream. So it's before E3 and 48 hours after the raid. So a lot of people are theorizing, myself included, that something's going to happen in the raid that's going to make us want to know right away what the hell is going on with Destiny. And I fully expect, they say it's the next chapter of Destiny 2, so it'll probably be another season of content or an expansion or something. And then I wouldn't be surprised, but I think strategically it doesn't make much sense. But Bungie is still going to be at E3 this year as well. So they'll either be there showing off content, or they'll be there showing off Destiny 3 or teasing Destiny 3. But I think that would shoot themselves in the foot, because they would kind of, take away the excitement from what's happening in Destiny 2. So we'll see.
Well, here's the thing. When they said what's coming next for Destiny, did they say specifically what's coming next for Destiny 2 or what's coming next for Destiny?
No, they said what the next chapter in Destiny 2 was the announcement they're doing on June 6th.
Huh.
But they're also going to be at E3. So, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. It's really interesting. But now that... So the interesting thing about Season of Opulence and the content is that was the last bit of content that would have been made with Activision. From
and probably
here
only
on,
partly as well.
Yes, yeah. So from here on, everything that we get is just Bungie. There's no more Activision influence in the content that they'll be creating. So it'll be really, really interesting to see how that pans out. And I'm really excited for June 6th and actually seeing what the big announcement is, because it's interesting timing. Like, before E3, 48 hours after the raid, wow, what's going on?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this happens every year now. Like, we get those pre-E3 controlled leaks, which is all about controlling the news cycle before they have to fight for attention amongst everything else. So yeah, totally makes sense. I mean, from our perspective, it just makes the entire fortnight a shitload more exciting, which I'm all about.
Oh god, yeah.
It's great. Yeah. But man, that sounds cool. I'm all on board. I'm going to jump in again sometime soon. I super need to. It sounds great. Yeah. Destiny, if it does have another sequel come out at some point in the future, possibility now that it might, and I mean might, appear on Xbox's new flavor of offering, which is that their Game Pass is now coming to PC. So Xbox Game Pass, which I think it was released maybe 2 years ago now. I think we're coming up on about 2 years, which is the subscription sort of service where you can actually pay a monthly amount and have access to a library of Xbox games, which you can basically play for free while you're a member. And the big kicker was that a lot of the, well, if not all of the first-party Xbox titles new on release were actually going to be available on Game Pass as well. So, new titles that you were otherwise going to have to shell out full price for to pick up, you instead would be able to pay to subscribe to Game Pass and play on release and try them out and see what you like about them without having to pay for the game fully up front. And a really good example of where people jumped on for this, and I think this was probably the first big one that came out on it, was Sea of Thieves, which a lot of people sort of initially, were a bit down on. But I got to say, actually, just as a side, seeing a bunch of stuff on Sea of Thieves this week has made me super keen to jump into that game again. So maybe we'll talk about that in the future. So
same.
Yep. But yeah, no. So Game Pass being on PC now, apparently it's not just going to be all the same titles. It's actually going to be a range of PC-specific games in that library, as well as some of the cross-platform stuff that is available on Xbox and PC. But similar sort of deal, like you have access to Game Pass, you can play absolutely everything in the library, and completely new AAA and first-party exclusives will still be able to come to that and be played from day dot. So there's a big incentive there. You don't have to kind of wait for things after release coming. It's not like the old days where you had to wait for a new cinematic release to hit the video store. 3 or 4 months after. Like, this is on the day of release. These will be on Game Pass kind of thing. So that's super good. Game Pass has been very popular since it launched, and with good reason, I think. And this is just going to further increase that. Makes sense for Microsoft too. I mean, they are it's Windows, it's PC-centric company.
Yeah.
So why the heck wouldn't you do this? It's good that they finally got their head around it.
And with the news that they've got 14 Xbox exclusive titles at E3 this year.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit. That's gonna be it. Yeah. I was excited about Microsoft at E3 this year, but everything in the build up to it, if this is the small news they're letting out before E3, before that real kicker stuff.
Yeah.
Holy fuck. I'm trying not to let my expectations get too high, but I'm super keen to see what they're doing, because Microsoft's had a real turnaround. Like, it feels like they've realized that when they started the Xbox One generation, just how much they fucked up. And now they're trying to change a lot of stuff about gaming and how we get access to things for the better. Like, the fact that they, again, I mentioned it before, the fact that they've been really at the forefront of pushing crossplay is just so cool. Like, yeah.
They found their edge. They're back balls to the wall again, and I'm loving everything I'm seeing that Microsoft's doing right now.
Same.
Yep. So we will see. I think their conference is at 4 a.m. our time coming up on E3
I'll be
week.
watching
So
it.
yeah, I think I might.
I
be
have
too.
started. Like, I'm lecturing at SAE now, by the way. But I've already told my students that during that week, I'm going to be super fucking tired, so don't test my patience.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, so speaking of more exciting announcements, so Square Enix has already come out and said that at E3, they'll be revealing the Crystal Dynamics Avengers game, which we knew existed for a while now, but oh my god, I have been super looking forward to it. There's some really interesting little tidbits that I've been hearing about it. So it is called Marvel's Avengers in the same way that the Spider-Man game was Marvel's Spider-Man.
I've heard some speculation on that, but I think that that's actually the new standard. So I think that pretty much everything that is Marvel licensed now has to be presented in that manner. So I don't think it's necessarily saying it's going to be like Spider-Man. So
yes. I would totally second that. I think that anybody that's reading too much into that is, reading too much into that. But it is definitely interesting that that's the way that they're kind of doing it. I had heard a rumor that you can customize your heroes, but they left it really vague with heroes. So I'm wondering if there's you actually have your own character. I don't know how that would work. But the thing about Spider-Man that made Spider-Man really good was that they could focus on just one superhero and make their abilities really shine. if we're playing Marvel's Avengers and we're swapping from Thor to Iron Man to Hawkeye and all these other characters, it's not going to feel nearly as good because that's just way too much stuff. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that kind of pans out if you're just focusing on one character surrounded by the Avengers or if you're focusing on the group of the Avengers and playing all of them. I'm excited to see how that actually pans out. Yeah. And also, Crystal Dynamics, like the Tomb Raider games they've been making recently are all really solid, so...
I think I'm done with Avengers, actually. I think now that Endgame is over, anytime I hear news about anything Avengers related, it makes me kind of dry heave a little bit. Where when you've just gorged on a big meal and then the last thing you want to think about is eating again. I kind of have that feeling with anything Avengers now, where like when I think about a game with those characters, I'm just like, no, enough, I'm done.
I think it's an interesting situation with people like yourself, Adrian, because I think that there'll be a split between people who feel like you do, where they've kind of hit saturation point and they're ready to move on. But then there'll be probably an equal amount of people, if not more, that will be the complete opposite, and they're still like riding the endgame train and still want more. And for that reason, the timing of this release is probably still a really good thing commercially for them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
it makes sense.
If I remember rightly, Adrian, you also read the comics, right?
Yeah, I've got plenty of Marvel comics. So yeah, I understand that contributes to it too. Where like these characters aren't new for me.
Yeah.
I've known them my whole life. So, and not that necessarily means that anyone who grew up with the comics is also sick of it. But after this length of time, the characters aren't exciting to me. They're kind of like they're almost like Disney characters in a way, where like there's nothing really exciting about them. They're just kind of staples in like pop culture. And I'm the kind of person where the more everyone loves, it's kind of hipstery, but the more everyone loves something, the less I'm kind of inclined to jump on the bandwagon. It was like that when Game of Thrones came out, and everyone's like, "Oh, you got to watch Game of Thrones." Like, excuse me, I'll watch this Game of Thrones when I feel like it. Thank you very much. And then, of course, it was amazing. But
mostly.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you were ever going to watch Game of Thrones, now's the time to do it because everybody hates it. So
That's true. That's kind of true. Now, the thing that I'm most curious about with this game is kind of similar to what you were getting at, Matt, like how they approach the protagonist perspective, because like Avengers, the strength of the Avengers is that it's an ensemble cast.
yeah.
And I don't think it would make sense for you to take the role of just one character for the duration of the game. Like, if they were going to do that, theoretically they could get away with it if you were like Iron Man for the entire game, or maybe even Cap. They probably couldn't do it with Thor. But I think they'd be really sacrificing a lot of opportunity if they did that. I could imagine that maybe you could switch between like the Thor, Cap, and Iron Man if they wanted to keep it sort of limited and not have you play as all of the core sort of 6 Avengers as per the MCU canon. Like, but I don't know. Like, is it going to be a game where it's on rails, where for certain parts of the narrative you have to play as that particular character to get that part of the story, or is it going to be a case that you can freely switch between them and there's some sort of boundaries as to what's achievable with the power set of whoever you're playing with at that particular time? I'm very interested to see how they balance that, because I think that's probably one of the most challenging aspects of creating an Avengers game, and probably why it hasn't happened up until this point. So,
Yeah, I mean, like, there's been other Avengers games that have existed where you have been able to play multiple characters, but it's been
obviously
fairly
they
limited.
weren't that good, because otherwise we would remember them a bit
Well,
better.
no. There's a whole bunch of them that are really, really well renowned, and there's a new one actually headed on the way to Switch that I know a whole bunch of people are excited about. I forget the name of what it was exactly called.
Marvel Ultimate Alliance?
Yes, that was the one.
Yeah.
So that's basically an Avengers game, but the way that those things work, like if you play Iron Man, you're not flying around a city, you're still kind of limited, just kind of hovering above the ground. Whereas, maybe my expectations are set too high, because I reckon putting Iron Man in the same scenario that Spider-Man was in his game would be amazing, right? Like actually being able to fly around that city and really nailing down that mechanic would be super awesome. But I don't know how well that's going to work when you have all these different characters with their own archetypes and abilities and such. Like that seems like a big ask unless you kind of reel it in and have them all be similar to each other. And that's, to me, less exciting than a game that's just kind of focused on, if it was Marvel's Iron Man that we were talking about as a game, I'd be actually fairly excited.
Yeah.
But I'm nervous about this because it's like, how exactly is that going to work? Because if they've tried to do everything that seems like a mistake to me as a game designer. So
I agree. The fact that it's Crystal gives me a lot of hope, though, because they know their shit. So
I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it basically was like, you are a new Avenger and you're surrounded by AI controlled Avengers, basically, and you're playing as your character in that scenario. I wouldn't be surprised, because that makes sense to me. At least then they can just kind of focus on a skill tree or something like that for your character, rather than having to make so many different abilities and everything. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah. No, we'll wait and see very, very soon, it seems. So that's cool. Now, the last thing that I just wanted to touch on tonight, because it kind of sort of loosely relates to our main topic tonight. After a bit of speculation a couple of years ago when this first started getting talked about, it has been revealed now, or announced now, that now, as per the World Health Organization's list of diseases, gaming disorder is now officially on that list. So I'm just going to read a sort of carefully crafted statement on this so I get the details right, but then we can sort of just discuss it in a bit more detail. So the World Health Organization today, this article's from Polygon, by the way, just to give credit where credit's due. World Health Organization today adopted a revision to the International Statistical Classification of Diseases and Related Health Problems, and that includes, for the first time, gaming disorder, which is considered an addictive behavior disorder. So gaming disorder is listed after gambling disorder, and uses that disorder's language almost word for word, replacing gambling with gaming. And gambling disorder was formerly pathological gambling, which the World Health Organization ratified in 1990. So the International Classification of Diseases is a system for classifying diseases and disorders for purposes of epidemiological health research, care management and billing, and clinical treatment. It has a chapter set aside for mental, behavioral, and neurodevelopmental disorders, where gaming disorder is now listed. So and the language calls gaming disorder a pattern of persistent or recurrent gaming behavior. So whether that's digital gaming or video gaming, which may be online, so over the internet, or it could be offline as well. So it kind of paints a bit of a broader brush than just video games, but obviously that's the first thing that most people are going to mentally jump to when they hear gaming disorder being talked about in this kind of format. So it's a very, very tricky, complex sort of situation. A lot of professionals from the video games industry have sort of come out in sort of protest and defense against this, because they don't believe that it has been sort of fairly classified in a number of different sort of ways. And there's big concerns about how this image might actually impact the industry at large. And I don't know, I think a lot of individuals have, related to the industry, have their own concerns as well. I personally have some pretty, I guess, big disagreements with what has been done here with this and kind of the consequences. I don't think will necessarily all be good ones for professionals in the industry. But I don't know, what did you guys sort of think about this? Do you have any personal take on it? Anything that you think might come of it, good or bad, or what do you think?
This might come as a surprise, but I don't necessarily disagree with the World Health Organization. So, like, from what I have read of it and what I understand now, I haven't gone and done a deep dive and compared to other diseases that they have classified and such, which I need to do to make a really good call. But I think that there's a immediate kind of knee-jerk reaction that, well, I play video games, so how dare you say that, this is something that isn't okay to be doing, right? But the actual stuff that they're talking about, like, this is not taking care of yourself and playing video games day in, day out, without sleep, without, eating, without showering, without doing all those things that you need to do to take care of yourself for over a year.
Yeah, this is streaming a 36-hour WoW session and pissing into a bottle kind of level, yeah.
It is insane, the sort of level that we're talking about here. And let's be honest, like, it is an extreme example. And what would concern me is if psychologists were taking that extreme example and applying it to kids that are playing, Fortnite in their afternoons and getting grumpy with their parents when they're told to go to bed at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like, that clearly does not apply here. But for those extreme cases, I think that, yes, that there does need to be a classification there. It probably does need to exist. But whether or not it in comparison to, like, alcohol addiction or drug addiction or whatever, or gambling addiction, like, does it measure up to those things and is fair? But yeah, inside the industry, there's I do want to make this comparison, but I think it kind of makes sense where if you were super passionate about developing cigarettes, you would also have a knee-jerk reaction about the World Health Organization saying they're bad for you. Like, it's not a fair comparison because games have good components and you can totally healthily play video games in comparison to there's no healthy way to smoke cigarettes. But inside the industry, I think there's a lot of knee-jerk reactions to this that aren't necessarily good. And I do think that video games as a whole do need a little bit more control because we can't just self-regulate. We've made it very clear that we are kind of failing to do that.
Yeah. No, I agree with that last part for sure. I think a lot of the fear is coming out of a world where this year especially, we've just had now US senators taking steps to introduce very harsh legislation to prevent, loot boxes, wholesale in video games without actually consulting with experts in the industry to the level that would actually make that a palatable thing for companies that are doing the right thing. We've got situations where, the US president is still blaming like extreme acts of violence on violent video games, and creating that kind of scaremongering. And we've got, even in Australia, we've got, current affair programs and morning shows over here with presenters that don't know what the fuck they're talking about, trying to scaremonger for the sake of sensationalism when it comes to, the impacts of video games on the development of kids. So, I think there's a fair bit of warranted cynicism amongst people in the industry that, a diagnosis of this nature is going to create a huge amount of fear and sort of ignorance, around the place that is going to lead to more of this kind of bullshit. And I don't think that that's an unfair sort of concern to have. So
I 100% agree that it is going to cause more bullshit from those same people.
Yeah.
But they didn't need the World Health Organization to do this to keep on with their bullshit.
Yeah.
And I think it would be irresponsible for the World Health Organization to basically say, well, if we go and classify this is going to be bad for the game development industry because they're already getting accused of causing shootings and such. Like, I
don't think it's just the industry, though. I think it's a lot of different parties around the place, like parents and, teachers and, anyone, like, think about a teacher at a school trying to use video games for educational purposes with legitimate reasons behind that. Now they have to sort of face this kind of criticism from people who think, my kid being in this environment is going to subject them to the risks of gaming disorder. I'm just like, fuck no, come on. So
yeah, no, I entirely agree with you there.
Yeah.
But my point rather is that it's not on the World Health Organization to restrain themselves from trying to help people be healthier just because there's some people out there that will take it to the extreme.
Yeah.
Like that's my only thing, right? Like, I completely agree that people are going to misuse this for their own benefit or to further a narrative that they believe, but I don't think the World Health Organization is saying that those people are being truthful,
Yeah. So anyway, speaking of gaming disorders, I think that Adrian's computer has suffered a bit of a gaming disorder because unfortunately we just lost him. Poor guy blue screened of death while we were doing the last of the news. He's just been talking to us via message as we've been continuing. So unfortunately we have lost Adrian for the rest of this evening.
So this is the same episode part 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but on that topic, what we were planning on chatting about tonight was there's been a lot of sort of stuff in the news lately in gaming around things that are maybe not that great, like talking about gaming disorder as a health impact, the loot box stuff that I alluded to before, all of the shit that we've been hearing constantly about the cost to individuals working in the games industry with, the human toll it's taking when studios mismanaged and crunch and all this kind of negativity surrounding all this sort of stuff. Like, we just flat out thought, let's actually have a chat tonight about games for positive impact. Like, let's flip it on its head and actually talk about some of the good stuff, because there is a lot of the good stuff out there. And, when we look at all of the positive things and the good that video games do in general, I think, we have had some very personal experiences where, like, that has kind of touched us and reached us on a really intimate level that we can certainly talk about. So, yeah,
definitely.
And Matt, like you especially sort of working, in the industry as you have, I think you've probably had the opportunity to come into contact with even more of that than I would have. So,
I have literally made games for good. It's
totally,
I love doing that stuff, and it's super interesting. I'll tell some stories about the game we made for Surf Lifesaving Western Australia. And that whole process, because I actually did a talk during GCAP. I think it was not last year, but year before, where I was talking about, we basically went in there. We were approached by Surf Lifesaving Western Australia to make a game to basically put before kids and teach them about beach safety rules and that sort of thing. And the whole concept that they had was basically the same thing that every sort of teacher type has when they are thinking of making a game to teach people things. They were going to go ahead and make a quiz. And we were like, that's a terrible idea because kids are going to immediately be like, why are you testing me on this stuff? And you should just like put that, embed your tests into the game's mechanics, right? Like the way that you check to see if these kids understand how the rules on the beach work is by seeing, you see if they actually have completed the game. And if they complete the game, they understand the rules because the rules for being on the beach are the same as the rules as what's in the game. And we actually brought in kids and did some special kind of testing where we basically asked them before they played the game, what are some of the dangerous things that you'll find on the beach? What are some of the dangers you're going to run into? And of course, the number one item on the list was sharks. And so all these kids are like, oh yeah, no, sharks are the big dangerous thing on the beach. I'm scared of sharks and all that. And then we put the game in front of them and let them play the game. And so the way the game worked was it was sort of like this little management game where you had a whole bunch of swimmers on the beach. And there was a pair of flags just like on the beach, when you have surf lifesavers around. And you had to drag the swimmers back between the flags if they swam outside of them. And there was other stuff in there that was appropriate for beach safety rules. So if you raised your hand, that kind of was indicating that you needed help. And so you should, tap on that person to send out a surf lifesaver to rescue them. And there's also a beach safety rule that you should always swim in pairs. So sometimes we would introduce that as a mechanic as well. And you would have to pair up little swimmers and actually have them swim together so that they would be safe. Because if they weren't paired up, they would slowly kind of fade out. So that was the other thing. We never actually showed these swimmers dying because it's a game for kids. So they were just kind of slowly, they look really sad and just kind of fade out. Reality.
Did you Avengers style dust them? Is that what was going on in the background?
We didn't dust them. I wish we had known that was going to be a thing because it would have been amazing. But yeah. And the result of that, from like 5 minutes of the kids actually playing the game, we asked them the same question, but in a different way, essentially, like, what would you do if you were down on the beach? How would you stay safe if you're on the beach rather than what are some of the dangers? And they were talking about, I'd stay between the flags. That was the big one. That was the one that all the kids, rattled off pretty much. Some of the kids were talking about, I swim with a friend. And so they had learned something from the game. Like within 5 minutes of playing it, the game had the positive impact that we wanted. Surf Lifesaving was stoked. They actually still have it on their website. They show it off. Their Twitter account for like a year after the game had come out was covered in branding for the game that we made. They were so happy with it. And we were too. And yeah, organizations like SciTech here in WA do a whole lot of learning games in that respect as well that I have gone and worked on. Some of my favorite ones have actually gone and made their way over to NASA, where kids that have visited NASA have been able to play on exhibits that I've made. And there's some really fun stuff there. We totally stole the concept for Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes and put it into a NASA game.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
So you had one person being an astronaut on the space station while it was having all these issues, and the other player was Houston and had to walk them through how to fix the problems. Yeah.
So like a teamwork simulator with some communication barriers to spice things up. Yep.
And yeah, like the exhibits that SciTech does are absolutely great. Like you can go to SciTech now as an adult and still have a great time playing around on their things there.
So SciTech, of course, being a science museum for those who don't live in WA, we have our sort of special sort of thing out here for that, which is really cool. Yeah,
it's really unique because like you have other museums around Australia that are very it's a science museum. But SciTech's special in that it's an interactive science museum. They only do interactive stuff. Like, you're not going in there and seeing dinosaur bones or anything like that.
Yeah.
All their stuff is games, pretty much.
Yeah, totally. I've always been fascinated by that kind of thing. I think I've known a few people who've worked at SciTech over the years, and they seem to have one of the coolest jobs in the world. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No, super good. I tend to, when we talk about games for positivity, like one of the things that I always go to now, of course, is, as a father, I get to see this sort of stuff all the time through my kids. So, their ability to actually comprehend things in a very short space of time with nowhere near the same amount of struggle or effort as I may have when I was their age, just through, the positive power of interactive games is just incredible. And I kind of, in a way, regret not having that kind of opportunity when I was younger, but I'm very happy that they do now. And I was having a really cool conversation with a good friend of mine earlier today via text, and he's a teacher who actually at one time did teach at my kids' school for a little while, sort of focusing on coding and that kind of thing. But he was chatting about the Minecraft Education Edition this morning, and sort of asking some questions like whether any of us had much sort of contact with it and that kind of thing. And I learned this morning that apparently a lot of the state schools now have actually gotten it budgeted in for them, that they've actually got access to the Minecraft Education Edition now as part of what's available to them. I didn't actually realize that. And as soon as I learned that, I was just like, holy crap, that is awesome. Because if there is a good example of a game that can teach these kind of things across a range of different topics, whether it's science or maths or, creativity or electronics and basic coding and all that sort of stuff, I think that's a really good example of a game that can tick all of those boxes in a fun and interactive way. Yeah. And man, if I had that when I was that age, funnily enough, I would still be playing it now, which is weird to say that because I'm actually doing that anyway. So yeah, super, super weird. But there are definitely things that I have been concerned about my kids playing because of the potential impact it would have on them in terms of seeing things that before they're of age to sort of really process it and absorb it, like any concepts around sort of loss and death, or anything that is a very sensitive sort of religious nature or anything like that. I'm usually a little bit gun shy on. And obviously all of the things you have to worry about with adult themes and violence and that kind of stuff. But there's definitely a lot more good than harm there if you are involved and engaged with what your kids are doing rather than just using it as a babysitting device. And I think that that's something that I've greatly enjoyed, sort of living vicariously through your kids by being able to enjoy that kind of stuff with them as a positive force is something that I underestimated the impact of in my life, I think is fair to say. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go into some real talk right now. So back when I was a teenager, I actually dropped out of high school. I never finished year 12. I actually did year 10 from home. And that was because I got bullied a lot when I was in high school. And I kind of retracted into myself. I was put on antidepressants before I was even 18. And I was on them for a couple of years. And I spent about like a year just at home playing World of Warcraft and Halo on my computer, and was just locked up in my room. And it was actually not necessarily a terrible time because we had actually moved out onto a farm. So I was out in the middle of nowhere. I could never actually see friends in person or anything like that. But it was a kind of a healing time. Like I could go outside and literally hop on a horse and go riding around the property and then come back and sit down and play World of Warcraft and Halo some more.
That doesn't sound bad at all.
Yeah, exactly, right? But not only that, like I can pretty much point at those two games and say the reason that I do what I do now is because of World of Warcraft and Halo. Like, Halo gave me a lot of confidence because it was something that I found that I could be good at and like excel at it. And I didn't really get that feeling so much with World of Warcraft because like lag in World of Warcraft is awful and I was playing on American servers. So I was always like, we had jokes about, I was playing a shaman. So my whole responsibility when we were playing arenas was to bloodlust and die. But I had a great time. Like we all, we had a really good group of friends and everything. And one of my, some of my best friends I met in World of Warcraft, I went to one of their weddings over in Ohio, flew myself across the world to attend my friend's wedding from World of Warcraft.
Wow.
And that game taught me leadership. Like, we had gone and put together a guild, and basically, one of my buddies was like, look, I want you to lead this with me because you're a really cool guy. And I was like, okay, I don't. I was such a mousy kid at that point in my life. Like, I was very quiet and withdrawn and reserved. But then playing World of Warcraft and leading this guild with people, and we were a role-playing PvP guild. Like, so we were going out of our way to go and fuck up other people's days pretty much. Like, we were doing the PvP thing. I was never confident with it, but I could lead the group with everybody, and I was kind of like the uniting force within the guild, I suppose, while the other guys were more focused on, we're going to be the kick-ass combat people. I was kind of the person that was the glue sticking everything together.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic. Like, it was such a great experience. And those people I've kept contact with, it's sort of like the friends that you never lose, even though you don't have contact with them every other day.
Yeah, and it's effortless to spend time with them no matter how much time has passed.
Yeah, exactly. And like, my friend that I flew over for his wedding and everything, I had literally not talked to him for a year before he messaged me out of the blue and was basically like, look, I'm getting married and I'd love for you to be over here as a groomsman. And I'm like, holy shit, dude, sure, I will fly myself over there. Let's do it. And it was awesome. But that experience being a leader in World of Warcraft, like, took me out of my shell. Like, I learned to talk to people again. I learned that, all that shit I dealt with in high school wasn't who I was, and that I could be this other person. And by playing World of Warcraft and playing Halo and then going and studying, and I started to find other things that I was good at. So I actually started off in web development, studying at TAFE, and started to drop myself off my antidepressants and got into game dev. And it was like just all because of those two games. Like, I can point to them specifically and say, if I hadn't played those games and taken a year to just kind of heal with those games, I wouldn't be who I am today. And I think that's amazing that they can have that kind of impact.
I totally believe what you're saying with regards to the way that you used to sort of, be a lot more of a mousy sort of personality and that kind of thing. But I struggle to picture it now, given how far you've come. I really do. Yeah,
it's so. You kind of underestimate the value that these things can have on your life.
Yeah.
Right. Like, but it's one of those things where those experiences that you have, you underestimate how much impact they're going to have on you today, but tomorrow you may realize that they changed your life in a really big way.
So speaking of games sort of for healing, there was something that I had to deal with a number of years ago now that was probably, one of the worst things I've ever, gone through in my life. And so not to say that it compares with worse shit that a lot of other people have had to deal with, but for me, this was pretty much the peak. So my father was diagnosed with terminal cancer like a number of years ago, and he's passed long since now. And when he was first diagnosed, it was actually lung cancer initially, and he was the sort of guy that had never been a smoker ever. Like, so it was highly bizarre that this kind of cancer had sort of stricken him, and it was a situation where he was given, anywhere between 6 months to a year or so to live, and obviously devastating for our family. The relationship I had with Dad was an odd one in that we were very, very different people in a lot of ways, but we related a lot in terms of like on an intellectual level, I think probably more than anything, and as leaders in our own separate areas as well. In personality wise, we had a lot in common and really kind of had a special connection as a result of it, even though, a lot of the shit I was into, he would never touch with a 10-foot pole. So we were very different people in that kind of respect. So, but yeah, like we were super, super close, and I underestimated how much impact it was going to have on me when it actually really came down to the crunch, and his health rapidly deteriorated. So it got down to the point where, he literally had, within 24 hours to live, and I was sort of at his bedside, and I just didn't know how to deal with it. Like I had lost relatives before, like particularly grandparents, but the level of closeness that I had with them while I had a strong connection, it was nothing like, that you have with your own parents. And when Dad actually passed, and I sort of, was dealing with it afterwards, and I did what a lot of, men my age do. I kind of just retreated into myself and tried not to let my hurt sort of show, and dealt with it in my own way. But, I suspect like a lot of people in this kind of situation, I wasn't dealing with it like at all. It was affecting me on such a deep level that I actually could tell at the time that it was changing me as an individual in a way that I didn't like. And, there was actually a game that I played not long afterwards that I was very hesitant to pick up because I thought it would be a very touchy area for me, and I would struggle to get through it. And as it turned out, I was completely right about that. But I stuck it out and actually did play it the whole way through. And that was That Dragon Cancer. You remember that game? Yeah. So it was a weird situation in that I heard it was really affecting, and it was a really sort of excellent game in the way that it sort of executed a family's journey through their child actually having cancer at a young age and not actually surviving through the story. So you kind of know where it's going to head and you know where it's going to end. And to a certain extent, I kind of thought that playing through it would be a bit of, it would be a bit sadistic. It would be a bit of self-flagellation, kind of forcing yourself through something that you know was going to be painful. But what it actually ended up being, despite how hard it was to sort of play through, it was a really sort of self-affirming journey of like kind of coming to terms with what had happened by going through the same sort of stuff, albeit from somebody else's eyes, but kind of realized in an interactive way that made you really consider it in relation to your own experience and sort of, I guess, not get caught up in the negativity so much, but actually kind of explore it from a more almost like a top-down way and sort of, how you can and look at things differently and the impact it's having on your life and how to actually sort of cope with that sense of loss and all that sort of stuff. And it's, to this day, it's still really difficult for me to talk about. Like, it's not just that it's a painful topic. It's just very hard sometimes to find the words to express something that, in a lot of ways could never be expressed in words alone. And I know that you've had sort of similar losses, in your life too, that you'd struggle to talk about in a similar way. But it was just such a massive impact on me at the time, as difficult as it was, that I think that for the power of positivity, having gone through that and having pushed myself through it to its conclusion, I'm a much better person for it as a result because of the way that it forced me to sort of deal with my grief and my...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, so I will actually talk about that. So earlier this year, I lost my partner, Melissa, and this is something that I've kind of... I'm not going to say quietly, I've been fairly open about the whole process of grieving over that, because she was younger than I was, and it was out of nowhere. Like, nobody expected it to happen. We didn't really have that time to prepare for the possibility that she could be gone.
Yeah.
And so it hit out of the blue, and it, like, having talked with a psychologist about it and everything, like, having learned so much about the grieving process and how people deal with death, like, the whole midlife crisis thing is actually because you realize your own mortality, and you kind of go, wait, what have I done with my life, right?
Yeah.
And it turns out, like, that's something that I kind of ran into very early on because I lost her. But there were so many games that we played together, and now whenever I go back and engage with those games again, it's playing with her. Like, she is there with me and we're sharing that thing, and it becomes a really, really awesome positive experience. Like, so I streamed the entirety of Spider-Man for her. So whenever I go back and I play Spider-Man on the PS4, like, I am thinking of those moments where we were playing together. And at first it did make me a little bit sad because it was, unfortunate that I don't get to share that now. But now it's like another way that I can kind of go back and experience those things again. And it becomes a really, like, positive and fun experience. All you guys give me a hard time about playing all the dinosaur games, but that's because of Melissa. Like, she started me off
I don't
playing
give you a
Ark.
hard time. I am just very conscious to point out the thread there. That's all.
like Ark and the Jurassic Park simulation game thing and the Isle. Those were all games that she played because she loved dinosaurs, and so whenever I play them, it's a way of engaging with her as well. And it's like, it's challenging, but the best way to deal with that grief is to engage with it. And to, like, it's never, you kind of accept that they are gone and that you've had those experiences and everything, and you can't really relive them, but you can continue on and have that person in your memory, and you find ways to kind of engage with their memory through games in a really positive way, especially when you've played them together. Or it has a theme that reminds you of them. Like, What Remains of Edith Finch actually, reminded me a lot of Melissa, because it's a game about death and kind of coping with that. And there's some brilliant quotes in that got me choked up, because it was like, I can just echo and understand and relate so much what the character is experiencing, that it makes me feel better and not feel so alone in how I was suffering.
Yeah.
And that's just incredible when, that's a narrative game for entertainment that is therapeutic. And that's just amazing. Like, I love that.
Sometimes they tread a fine line. Like, I think there's definitely games that push those buttons that are definitely going to be sensitive spots for certain people for the sake of the impact in the entertainment way. Like, not necessarily making a statement or trying to sort of have a positive force beyond just literally waking you the fuck up and getting you sort of, to pay attention to what's going on. Like, I have very mixed feelings about the beginning of The Last of Us for that reason. Like, I think that it's an absolutely stunning game, and, the opening of that game dealing with sort of like a parent's loss as well as an extremely powerful narrative hook. But by the same token, while it's done very, very well, it does sort of hit me as some of that, we're literally going to punch you in the dick just to make you wake up and enjoy this game, as opposed to, doing it for the power of good kind of thing. So, yeah.
It's very much like that whole thing about fridging, like fridging a character just to have some emotional impact.
Yes.
And it's just cheap. It's a cheap blow, right? And I do agree. Like, I think The Last of Us has that kind of cheap blow right at the start.
They do pay off on it later, though. I don't think it's cheap. But it can seem that way initially. They do sort of put the yards in so that it's not like down the track, but it was definitely, it could have gone that way. So,
yes, for sure. Like, I think there's kind of a theme, this is kind of a sidetrack, but I think it's interesting. Like, a lot of games that are coming out now are about adulthood and being a parent, especially being a father.
Yeah, God of War, fuck yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right? And it's kind of because all of those game devs that have been making these games are now becoming fathers and parents, and so they want to make games about their experiences with, having children and dealing with that, right? And I have no doubt that, like, God of War, of all things, that relationship between father and son is going to have had a positive impact on somebody and their relationship with their father or son.
Yeah.
Because of the kind of themes that rise out of that. And it's God of War.
Yeah, 100%. I would put myself in that category without a hesitation. Absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned that because Cory Barlog, during that Raising Kratos documentary that I spoke about recently, talks about that being the driver behind those choices exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, you hit the nail on the head for sure. But
yeah, I love that stuff. There's so many cool games that, when you, on a surface level, right, like God of War is a game about throwing axes and being awesome. And like, that's perfectly fine into itself. But the moment you start to think about how other people are going to engage with that in their own context, it's a super fascinating thing. Like, I remember there was so much talk about Dream Daddy, right? Like, Dream Daddy is a really, really good example because it just, it's a super silly game about being a dad and dating other dads, right? But there was very clearly an audience there that was keen on something like that, right? And it's super body positive. It's gay positive, it's LGBT positive. Like, it has all of those things in there that if you're, you could be a teenager struggling with your sexuality and play that game and get something good out of it that benefits you, right? And it's not necessarily a game made for good. It's still a game meant to be a piece of entertainment, but it has done good because of what it has, what it is and the way it's structured. And I don't think you can point to many games that don't have that potential benefit in some ways.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think there's definitely a part of it, which is, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and different games are going to mean different things for different people.
Yeah.
And occasionally the impact it'll have on someone is entirely accidental and sort of relative to their own life experience. But I think that more and more these days, game developers are taking chances and actually exploring ways that they can try and do good with what they're producing rather than just telling a sensational story for the sake of entertainment. And
for sure,
I love the fact that we live in that world. Like, the fact that the hobby and the industry is deep enough now with what's out there that, developers and storytellers feel like it's almost their duty in some cases to push that medium to the next level and make their product actually mean something beyond just being another 10 hours of someone's entertainment time. I think that's absolutely awesome. Like, so for someone who's not, in the strictest sense, an artist themselves, like, I mean, obviously I'm a creative person and I create content of different forms and that kind of thing. I often think to myself, how can I create something that's actually going to have a legacy, as opposed to how can I create something that's going to just, I guess get a click or something like that. And the fact that these people actually have the ability to do that on a much more meaningful level, I think is just awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's why I probably would never make a mobile game that is like, Flappy Bird or I can only think of bird examples, Flappy Bird and Angry Bird, right? Like, what's the kind of deeper meaning behind those games? Like, there isn't really one. They're kind of they exist to be a time waster.
Yeah.
And they're fun in their own right, for sure. But I'm certainly more interested myself in making games that are going to have an impact and leave a lasting impression on somebody and have them, think back and go, wow, that was a really, really interesting experience. Like, there's a game that I absolutely love, this little narrative game. I forget the name of it, where it's kind of like a AOL Instant Messenger thing, like a little text-based role-playing game. And the second one, you're basically chatting with these two different girls, and your decisions in how you interact with them, like when you actually get to the end of the game, it turns out that every little decision you made can potentially come back to bite you in the ass. And it makes you realize that, your habits as a gamer can be quite often to try and please everyone. And the game highlights how that's a really unhealthy thing to do, not just unhealthy for you, but potentially unhealthy for all the relationships you have. And even that little game, like, impacted me more in a way of, wow, that's a really clever idea and I love it. But just, the fact that that's teaching a lesson to somebody out there. There's so many games you can go on about like this. I love it. It's so good.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the kind of message we want everyone to take home from this is, in a year where maybe some more of the negative aspects of the video gaming hobby than ever before are kind of, being brought out of the shadows into the light a bit. And sometimes it makes you feel a little bit down about being, interested in these games that have like a real negative sort of human cost on occasion. Just remember that there's a lot of good out there as well. There's a lot of creativity and artistry that has definitely sort of, gone the lengths to better people's lives in, profound and often unexpected ways. So,
for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Well, I guess that's where we will leave it for tonight. So again, Matt, thanks for tonight. It's been a good chat as ever. And doing a bit more of the deep and meaningful stuff, I think, is hard to do within that 90-minute kind of window.
Oh, yeah.
There's stuff that we could easily, like, over a beer chat about for hours. But we will have another format for that later in the year, perhaps. So that'll be a good time for sure. But unfortunately, obviously, Adrian couldn't wrap up the episode with us. Hopefully, he'll be back next week. We'll sort out his tech troubles. Fingers crossed. And next week is our Party Game of the Month review episode. And we will be chatting about a little game called Deep Rock Galactic, which I'm not going to spoil how next episode is going to go, but I will say that this is probably going to be one of the reviews that I think we have prepped the most for in recent history. Take from that what you will.
We all think it's shit.
Yeah. I think next week's is going to be a cracker. So look out for that. In the meantime, you can catch us at all the usual locations. So mail@partyloaded.com. We're on Facebook under Party Loaded, on Twitter @PartyLoadedShow. Everything is under our big hub over at channelendgame.com. And I just want to point particular attention this week to both our YouTube and our Twitch channels. So check out our YouTube content over at Channel Endgame under YouTube. So youtube.com/channelendgame. There has been a ton of stuff going up recently. My Minecraft Sky Factory 4 series is ongoing. There's a dozen or so videos up for that now. I've been putting one up nearly every day. And we've got some highlight gameplay from some of our recent Twitch stuff going up as well, including our Party Game of the Month. So you should check that out to get a bit of a feel for what we're going to talk about next episode. And our Twitch channel, of course, is twitch.tv/partyloaded. And I streamed for like 4 days straight this week, and everyone's been getting pretty heavily into that. I know Christian recently streamed his entire, what was it, the 5th playthrough of Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice?
Something like that. I've lost count.
Crazy, man. Holy shit. So suffice to say, there's a lot of activity on our Twitch channel at the moment. We've all been getting pretty involved in that. So if you want to see what's going on that, Twitter's probably the best place to keep following when we're on and online. But I think, our increased focus on that's been pretty good. So yeah.
Yeah, you've been doing Minecraft Mondays, and I've been sitting over here being like, do I need to do like a Stellaris Saturdays or a Sun Destiny?
Do it. Just do it. Just jump on, man. Absolutely. Oh man, it's times like that I'm still kind of disappointed that we're playing Destiny on different platforms, but who knows?
Oh, that's one of the theories that I have, that big announcement they do on June 6th may actually be that there's crossplay coming, and if that's the case, oh man.
Oh my god. Okay, I have hype beyond most people for E3 stuff in general, but if that is one of the announcements, you will see me very, very excited. Yeah.
Our group has basically all said, yeah, we'll go to PC.
It's funny. Actually, speaking of our group sort of saying stuff, I was getting excited about a few different games today, and Ollie was sort of posting, so is this the time of year where I need to mute Luke for like 48 hours? And Jam was like, dude, E3 is still 2 weeks away. You're going to be muting him for a lot longer than that. So, hilarious.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, yep. It is that time. But anyway, it is that time for us as well. We're going to sign off now. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll be back again to chat next week. Until then, good night.
Good night.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.